Today, we're going to put on our hard hats and pull out the blueprints for one of the most incredible documents ever written, the Constitution of India. We're going to break down its entire architecture, piece by piece. Let's get right into it. I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. How on earth do you even start to design a single, coherent plan for a nation with over 1 billion people? It is a massive undertaking, but that's precisely what the Indian Constitution does. You see, it's not just some dry book of laws. It's a master plan. And just like any good blueprint, it's organized into really logical sections. The people who wrote the Constitution didn't just throw a bunch of ideas at a wall. They created this incredibly systematic framework, dividing the entire structure into distinct parts. So here are the basic specs. This whole thing went into force back in 1950, and it's the one supreme law that's the bedrock for the entire country. And get this, it started with 22 parts, but it's a living document. It's actually grown to 25 parts now, acting as the ultimate guide for how India is run. So where does any blueprint start? Well, with the absolute basics, right? You have to define the structure and who it's for. The Constitution does exactly that in its very first sections. It lays the foundation by answering two fundamental questions. What is India, and who are the Indian people? Part 1 basically draws the map. It defines India not as just a collection of states, but as a union of states. Now, that's a really important distinction. It means the country is an indivisible whole. This part also gives Parliament the power to create or even change state borders, setting the physical outline of the nation. Okay, so once the territory is defined, Part 2 answers the very next logical question. Who belongs here? It lays down the core principles of who is considered an Indian citizen when the Constitution was first written. So, in a way, this part populates the very map that was just drawn in Part 1. Now let's see how this thing builds. We've got a country and its citizens. The next step in the blueprint is to establish the core relationship between them. You can think of it like a charter, one that lays out all the promises, the guidelines, and the responsibilities that go both ways. Part 3. This is the very heart of the Constitution's promise to its people, the fundamental rights. And let me be clear, these are not just suggestions. They are guaranteed, legally enforceable protections for every single citizen against the power of the state. This is the true foundation of Indian democracy. But there's another side to this charter. Part 4 gives the government its own set of goals, called the Directive Principles. And this is just a brilliant design. See, fundamental rights are the must-dos for the state, things it absolutely cannot take away from you. The Directive Principles are the should-dos, the big ideas and ideals the government should work towards to create a fair and just society, even if you can't take them to court for it. So the state has its duties, but what about us, the citizens? Well, in return for all these incredible rights and protections, Part IVA outlines 11 fundamental duties. These are really the moral obligations for every citizen, things like respecting the Constitution and promoting harmony. It completes that circle of mutual responsibility. Okay, so we've got the foundation, and we've got the relationship between the state and its people all mapped out. Now, the blueprint has to design the actual machinery of government. I mean, how does this huge country actually run from day to day? The Constitution designs a pretty clever 3-tiered system. Right at the top, you have the Union, which is the national government. Then you have the state governments. And, crucially, power is also pushed down to the grassroots level through local bodies. It's like a pyramid of governance. Part V gives us the detailed schematics for that very top tier, the Union government. It meticulously lays out the powers and functions of the executive, which is led by the president, the legislature, which is parliament, and the national judiciary, headed by the Supreme Court. This is the master plan for the whole central government. Right after that, Part 6 provides the template for the second tier, the states. It pretty much mirrors the union structure, detailing the roles of the governor, the state legislatures, and the high courts. This creates a really consistent model of democracy across all of India's states. And finally, the blueprint empowers the very base of that pyramid. Part I and its subparts get into the details of local self-government, things like village panchayats and city municipalities. The whole point here is to make sure that democratic governance really reaches every single corner of the country. So we've built the structure and we've installed the engine. The last part of any good blueprint is the operating manual. You know, the rules that make sure the whole system runs smoothly, fairly, and can adapt when new challenges come up. One of the most critical sets of rules is in Part XI. This part manages the relationship between the central government and the states. It carefully divides up who has the power to make laws and who has the power to administer them. This section is absolutely crucial for keeping that delicate federal balance and, frankly, for preventing fights over who's in charge of. But how do you make sure this whole democratic engine stays legitimate? Part XV has the answer. It sets up a powerful and, very importantly, independent election commission. This group's only job is to make sure that elections, the very foundation of the whole system, remain free and fair. A smart blueprint also has a plan for when things go wrong. Part 18 is basically the contingency plan. It gives the government special powers to handle extraordinary situations, like a war, a breakdown of a state government, or a major financial crisis. And this, to me, is maybe the most brilliant part. The blueprint knows it can't predict the future. So, Part XX provides the mechanism to actually amend the Constitution itself. This ensures the document isn't just some rigid relic, but it's a living, breathing framework that can evolve right along with the nation. So, when you put all these parts together, the foundation, the charter, the engine of government, and the operating manual, what's it all for? Well, they all serve one ultimate purpose. The combined goal is to secure for every citizen justice, liberty, equality, and a sense of fraternity, or common brotherhood. And that leaves us with one final thought. This blueprint has guided India for over 70 years. But as a nation keeps changing at such a breathtaking pace, which of these architectural pieces, the rights, the structure of government, the power to change things, which part do you think will be the most vital for shaping its next chapter?